Hi everyone, and welcome back to Be Like Christ. Today we are discussing 2 Samuel chapter 13, and I will have to put out a bit of a parental advisory on this chapter. I will try to say things in a way that makes sense to the adults, but also don't reveal too much to the kids. So sometimes it gets hard in the Old Testament. 2 Samuel chapter 13, you can get the free PDF online that you're seeing up on the screen at the link down below, and there are books now available for the 5-minute studies. There's a link for that as well. David became king in about not 55 BC, 1055 BC, 1055. He reigned as king for approximately 40 years until 1015 BC, when his son Solomon took over for him, and we were actually introduced to Solomon in the last chapter. But we've got some of the other sons of David to talk about in this chapter. That takes us to our characters. David's our first character. Amnon, I believe, was David's firstborn son with his wife Ahinoam. Absalom, he's an interesting character we'll talk about quite a bit. Absalom was David's son with a woman named Maacah. Tamar was David's daughter, also with Maacah, and she was the sister of Absalom. Okay, and then Jonadab. Jonadab is the nephew of David, and he's described as a very crafty man. We also have some new places to introduce in this chapter. A little bit of a spoiler here. David's house was in Jerusalem. We know that. Now, Absalom killed his brother Amnon. We'll see why in the outline. He killed him at Baal-Hazor or Baal-Hazor near Ephraim. And then Absalom fled to a place called Geshur, west of the Sea of Galilee, after killing his brother. Now, if you remember in the last chapter, there was a curse that fell on David's house, that there was always going to be infighting in his family. This was a result of his sin with Bathsheba. We're going to see some of that infighting in this chapter. The first section, verses 1 through 22, Amnon, Absalom, and Tamar. David had two sons who we just mentioned, Amnon and Absalom. He had others, but these two are key to this chapter. Amnon and Absalom, they were half-brothers because they had different mothers. David also had a daughter named Tamar, who was the full sister of Absalom and the half-sister of Amnon. Just trying to keep all the details straight and get everybody introduced properly. Amnon, who was Tamar's half-sister, half-brother. Let's try that again. Amnon loved his half-sister Tamar, and together with his crafty friend Jonadab, he devised a plan to be with her. Amnon pretended to be sick, and he asked his father David to send Tamar to him to prepare food for him. When Amnon and Tamar were alone, Amnon forced Tamar to have relations with him. But after he slept with her, he disgraced her even further. The text says that he resented her, he hated her, and he dismissed her from his presence. And we're told that Tamar was greatly shamed by this, and she lived as a desolate woman after that. Now, when Absalom learned about Amnon's actions, he concealed his anger, but we're told that he made plans to eventually exact his revenge on Amnon. All right, that takes us to section number 2. Absalom kills Amnon in revenge. So 2 years later, Absalom was shearing sheep at a place called Baal-Hazor, and he convinced David to send all of his sons to join him in Baal-Hazor, and that would have included Amnon. Absalom told his servants that when they had the opportunity, they were supposed to kill Amnon. Now, when that opportunity arose, Absalom's servants obeyed the order. They killed Amnon, and all of the other sons of David fled. It was initially reported to David that all of his sons had been killed by Absalom, but a later report from Jonadab clarified, no, it was only Amnon that had been killed. Absalom fled, knowing that he was going to incur the wrath of the king for killing his brother. He fled and he went to Geshur, and he remained there for 3 years. And the text tells us something interesting. After David was kind of comforted about Amnon, he longed to reconcile with Absalom. Absalom seems to have a special place in the king's heart, and that's going to kind of get David into trouble. And so that is 2 Samuel chapter 13. We see some of the first of this infighting within David's family. And now finally for our application section. I imagine after 2 years, Amnon probably thought that nothing was going to come of his relationship with Tamar, that he wasn't going to get in trouble for it. But Absalom had other plans. Now contrast that with the character of God. One of the most beautiful things about God is that he has made his intentions clear. He won't surprise people with acts of revenge for things that they did in the past. He won't be fake to you, speaking kindly to you, pretending like everything is all right, and then intending to bring destruction on you when he actually hates you. God has made it clear that he's going to forgive the wrongs of those who come to him and who are his children, those who put their trust in Christ. He's equally clear that his anger is going to be directed towards those who refuse to obey him and those who refuse to come out of their sins. We don't have to guess about the way that God feels about us, and that is very relieving because that's not always the case with human beings.